I'm Nadine Thornhill, sexuality educator. It has been more than a minute since my last video, so if you're returning, thank you for coming back and Happy New Year. If you are new here, then welcome, thanks for checking me out, and if you want to stick around, why don't you go ahead and click the subscribe button down below, and then you won't miss any of my videos, which I promise to produce more than once every 2 months moving forward. I wanted to talk about the MeToo movement because it really gained momentum sort of in these 2 months when I was on hiatus, and I haven't had a chance to really discuss it on my channel yet. So for those of you who may not know the history, MeToo actually started over 10 years ago, and it was started by a woman named Tanara Burke, but it's only in the past few months that the cultural conversation around sexual violence and sexual harassment and just generally icky sexual behavior has really started to shift, and we've really seen some momentum around this movement and around this idea that, hey, you know what? It's not cool to engage with people sexually against their will. These past few months, we've been a little bit better at listening to and believing some victims of sexual abuse, sexual violence, and harassment, particularly white women, particularly white celebrity women. At the same time, we're still not doing an amazing job at listening to folks of color, you know, trans and non-binary folk, indigenous folk, you know, elderly folk, people with mental illness, people with physical disabilities, people who are poor, youth, you know, people who statistically are the most vulnerable to sexual violence. You know, we're still not listening to and taking their stories nearly as seriously as we should. So I find myself feeling, you know, really frustrated when I read interviews with people like Liam Neeson or Margaret Atwood or Catherine Deneuve or, you know, any number of these people who are questioning whether the MeToo movement has gone too far, because to me it seems obvious that no, not only has it not gone too far, it has not gone nearly far enough. I am grateful that there has been some momentum. I am glad that, you know, some people are finally being heard and believed when they speak out and say, you know what, someone touched my body or engaged with me in a way that I didn't want or like, and that's not okay. And I am relieved that more people are aware of just how bad we are as a culture at prioritizing sexual consent and sexual pleasure. Instead of treating sexual pleasure like a basic human right, you know, something that we're all entitled to if we choose it, our culture has taught us historically that sexual pleasure is something that drives men, that for them it's inevitable, and therefore the rest of us are responsible for managing and navigating and avoiding the consequences of the male libido. We need to start teaching people who aren't men that they too are allowed and entitled to pleasure during sex, that it is not incidental, that is not selfish, that they have every right and reason to expect to feel good during a sexual encounter, and that if they don't, that they are allowed to say something, they are allowed to withdraw, and they are allowed to be angry and outraged if their partner does not respect and acknowledge their inherent right to that pleasure. On the flip side, our society needs to do a way better job at teaching boys and men that if they want to get with someone sexually, you know, whether that be flirting or playful touching or, you know, going down or hand jobs or intercourse, whatever it is, that they need to give a shit about the other person and their feelings. You know, we need to say, you know what? You need to approach a potential sexual partner with basic human decency and respect, and you need to honor that that other person has a right to their pleasure. And if their pleasure does not include you or what you happen to want to do with them, well, that can be disappointing or frustrating or sad or embarrassing. And you know what? You have to deal with that. I know that sexual rejection can be brutal and that can be really uncomfortable emotionally, but you have to learn how to deal with those rough emotions. You know, you have to learn how to feel them and process them and move through them, because while yes, you too are entitled to sexual pleasure, you're not entitled to getting it at someone else's expense. So if someone is not into your vibe, you gotta back off. And if you're not sure, then you've got to ask. Pleasure is important. No matter what our identity, no matter what type of body we have, no matter how that body functions, we have a right to decide whether we want to engage with someone else sexually or not. And if we choose to do that, then we have a right to sex and experiences that feel good. And pleasure is about what feels good for us physically, but it's also about what feels good for us emotionally, what feels good for us psychologically, and if that is part of how you move through the world, it's also about what feels good for us spiritually. All right, let's head to the comments and discuss all of this. Let me know what you think about movements like MeToo and Time's Up, and also tell me how you think we can make sex, happier and more enjoyable for everyone, or at least everyone who wants to be having the sex. I am out, but until next time, keep talking and keep on listening. Bye.